Hi everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. I am Frederick and I'm happy to have you here today. This video is actually a top-up request made by my community. We are going to look at a refresh token support for Blazor consuming .NET 8 Core Web API with default authentication endpoint. I've done 3 previous videos and those videos spoke about the first one was how to configure Blazor WebAssembly core-hosted project in .NET 8. And also the second one was configuring default authentication endpoint in .NET 8 Web API. The third one was how to consume .NET 8 default authentication endpoint in Blazor application. And now this is the last one, making the whole application complete. And that is adding a refresh token support to this. So if you haven't watched any of these videos, please, I'll put all the description. Is it description? I'll put all the links under the description. So please check on that and I'll go through, because here it is just a top up. You've done it already. You've done the implementation, everything. What we're going to do today here, it is the refresh token support. Thank you. I do offer coaching course and a training session for beginners who are interested in Blazor technology, which comprise of .NET, Blazor Server, and also the .NET Blazor WebAssembly API for .NET Core API, and also .NET MAUI and .NET MAUI Blazor Hybrid. So I have an email in the description. If you're interested and want to be part of this, write something for me through the mail. Okay, now let's see. Let's try to go through what we're going to do today for you to have the better understanding before we jump into the code. When we are done too, I'll push this to the GitHub. So don't worry. You're going to get it in the GitHub, okay? And I'll put a link under the description. I'll put all the 4 links or 4 projects or videos that I've made in the description. So you can just go in there and then clone or when you clone this, you're going to have access to all of the 3 other projects. Now the token is okay. Let's log in. So I have an email account here. Let's use this to log into our application. Right click, let's go to inspect element. So once it's logged in, let's see the changes that are going to happen over here. Okay, so let's log in again. Alright, so you can see that we are logged in and we have the weather forecast. We have our email over here and we have logout. This is just a login that you can do, isn't it? That's right. Now let's check this from the application. Let's check the local storage. You can see we have this token, which comprises of the refresh token and now the token itself, and maybe your username over here. We are getting all of this from the default API endpoint created by Microsoft. And these are the endpoints. So you have register, login, and etc. Now we focus on the first 2. In this video, we are going to add the first 3. So we actually calling this 3. And now the last here, manage info. So these are the 4 endpoints that you're going to use. The rest, I'll leave it up to you. Maybe you're going to talk about this next time if you make a request. Okay. Now let's see. We have it over there. So if I click on logout, let's see what happens. You can see it has been removed from the local storage, and now you are logged out. You are not seeing any the weather forecast anymore. Let's do it once more. So I'll just log in. And now as I'm here, I still have the token created, and this is a different set of token and the refresh token which has been given to me. Now if I click on weather forecast, it is working. Do you know the reason why? Click on this and I go to network tab. Now here, we want to clear everything from here. Okay. Now home, and now let's click on again. You can see we have made an API call. The status code here, it is 200. It is fetch, meaning it is get HTTP verb, and that meaning it is working. Now, if I click on this, we see the header. Now, check here. You can see we have an authorization as a header session that we added. And now the type here, it is what? It is a bearer token. Now, this is the token that we sent. So we have the bearer token over here, and we have the refresh token in the local storage. Take note. Now, this is what the API needs to request or to send this data. And as soon as it sends it, let's see the preview. So there's the output, there's the outcome from the API. Okay, so there's a response. So as soon as the token has been sent with the request, Now it receives it, verifies, and I'll return the data. But let's say when we have a look here, the type or the period for this token expires within 3,600 seconds, and that's exactly 1 hour or so. You see, so can you even have it here? If I click on login, and maybe let's see the login response, the scheme for this login request. So we have, okay, this is an email two-factor. All right, so we can't find that here, but I believe. All right, so I wanted to show you the seconds or the time that it needs for this API to get expired. Now, in case it gets expired, what happens? When you try to make a call, you're going to have 401. Although you authenticated, but you're going to still have the 401. In this case, what can it do? That is the reason why we need to implement a refresh token. So what we need to do here is we're going to send this refresh token to the API. Then we're going to generate a new token. And after we receive the refresh token, we are going to, after we receive the new token, we are going to remove the token from the header, the HTTP client header, and now pass in the new one, and I'll make a request again. And that is the reason why we are going to do all this stuff as a refresh token support. Let's try this. The time hasn't elapsed, so I'm going to maybe change one of the characters in here. So we see this is C, that is O, right? And I'm going to make it as T. Okay. Now let's try to refresh this, and let's see what happens here. So let's go to the network tab, and let's see a request made. So if I click on this, let's see. So you can see that when you check this, an API call has made, and that is a refresh API call. At first, this was the call that we made, and I'll check the header. So you can see the header here has T. Then it must have T somewhere. Is it this one? You can see there is a header that is sent. Okay, so CT. You can see it has this header sent. Now the last key was EG, isn't it? Now, as soon as it went, the response was 401. If you check this, the response was 401. So that was unauthorized. Although we authenticated, but we have the 401 as unauthorized. In such case, what can we do? Quickly, we have to run the refresh token support. And this is a refresh token. So while say we have the EG, refresh token call was made. And now let's see the new token. So this is a 200 for status code. And it is a post request. The path here is refresh. Okay, so after doing that, a token was sent. And let's check the token. So now you have the weather forecast with a new one. Check the authorization. And now I had CT. Now see we have the same CO again. Check the last end. So you can see this is a QJ. So you can see this is a new token altogether. Right. Now when you check that is the application, and I go to the local storage. Now this has been changed to the current one. Okay, so that is it. So you can see that here, you did not have to re-log in again. It does it automatically. And that is a work of the refresh token. Now you've seen and understood this. Let's get to work and see what we're going to do. All right, so I'm going to close this. So to run quickly through what we've done already, you see we have this Blazor app project added. We have a class library added. And also we have an API added. And in our API, we have a controller. There's just a default one for weather forecast. What we did was we just added an authorized attribute, and that is all. We created our database context class. We made some migration which inherit from this IdentityDB context. We installed some packages, and now we have our configuration settings set in the app settings over here. So these are things that we did from the web API. When you go to the shared library too, we have these models for response, for login user, and also to register user. Aside from that, we went to the app and we created our authentication by having a model that's going to be stored the response to the local storage of the client. We also created our custom auth state provider to check and authenticate the user. and we have this user details to handle the user coming out, or that is the response from the user when you try to make a request. And also we had just this page to handle the login and the register. So these are the things that we created, and that's all. The rest are default. If you want to know more, please check the description, and I'll leave those videos over there for the starting ones up to the finishing ones. Okay, so as you can see, you see that in the previous video, in the custom all state provider, we created two methods here, and that is serialize and unserialize this authentication model. So with this, we are going to need this. So what we're going to do here is we have to move this into a separate class, because when you're coding, one of the best practice here is do not repeat yourself. We don't want to copy this and paste it somewhere else again. So what we can do here is we're going to put this in the class and I'll make them as static. Okay, so we can be using them. So let's add a new class to this, and when I click on this, click on add, and I click on class, and I'll give it a name. So I have the name over here, so you can give it any name that you want, but in this case, I'm going to make it a serialize or deserialize class. Then click on the add button. So we have the class created, and that is this. So within this class, this is what you're going to do. You know, we are pasting the two methods. So we've done this already. We are serializing this. So this method, when we call, it is accepting a string. This string here, it is a string of this object in a token. And now we are going to serialize it into an object, and I return this authentication model. Maybe if you're asking yourself where from this model, if I peep this here, you can see we have just token, refresh token, the username. So this is what you're going to use to store in the local browser storage. Now let's see here to serialize. So we're going to serialize this model into just a string, and that is the output. We don't want to create an instance of this all the time. So make a static class, static. So it creates the instance once, it stores it or it caches it, then we can use it a whole lot. All right, so now we are done with our class. Good, let's close it. Now let's go to the solution again. And now the next thing to do here is to update this authentication state. You know, we're going to remove this. Okay, so this, when we remove it, you're going to have some errors in here. So to do that, we have to update them. So you can see when you come to wherever that we use the serialize and deserialize class, just add a name. So serializer or deserialize. Should have been deserializer, isn't it? Yeah, don't worry. So serialize or deserialize dot, then we can now call the static method on deserialize, and I'm passing the model. Also, when it comes to passing this is a string, so you want to, this is a model, you see here we are deserializing it to this model. And after deserializing, we can just get only the email username section or the property. Now here we are also serializing, so you see we are passing the serializer options or deserialize.serialize, then passing the model to return as a string. So we use it in this, I think, 2 places. So we have to include them here, and that is all. So this method that we have created, we can use it somewhere else. I believe this is clear. Thank you. Now for us to be able to make a request, if we run this and I'll check the API, let's try that and see. So let me save this. So whilst running, let me explain. We have to create, now the reference token is a post method. So we have to create a model which fits the request of that endpoint. That endpoint has only one property, and that is a refresh token. So we need to create a model which has also one property known as refresh token. So we can make a request. We can just push it to the API endpoint because it's a post method. Let's have a look when this app runs. Now let's go to the Swagger. Okay, so now it is changing. Let's check. Okay, so we can just navigate to the Swagger. And now from the Swagger section, you can see that here, check the refresh token. There's a refresh token. You can see it's a post. So when you're using an HTTP client, it should be post async or post as async. That's what we need to use. Take note. It is not a get method. Now, if I click on this refresh, you can see it has only one property known as refresh token. So we have to also create one property, one model with just a property known as refresh token to fit this. I hope this is clear. Good. So now let's close this again. And now with this token, let's put it, since it's going to be used by only the client, let's put it restricted or limited to the client. So put it in the authentication folder. And that is a post token. So it has just one property known as refresh token. And that's what we're going to use to make the request. Now the next thing that we're going to do here is we want to create an instance of HTTP client class. Now what is this class going to do? It's going to return one public HTTP client and also private HTTP client. What does each mean? Public means it doesn't contain any authorization header, and then private means it contains an authorization header of bearer token. The public is going to be used to call, maybe login, register, get refresh token, because these endpoints, they are not protected. You do not need to pass in token before you can make a request to that API. And for the private is a weather forecast. You can see it is protected. So you need a token added to the header of an HTTP client before you can make a request to that endpoint. That is the reason why we are creating two public and also the private HTTP client. We don't want to be removing the header, making a request, adding header, making a request. You don't want to do that, edit and add, edit and add. No, we don't want to do that. So we want to create a separate class for an instance of an HTTP client for each. So, and also we create a method that we can use to retrieve the token from the local storage. Okay. You can see that even that we can improve the custom authentication state, because you know that in the custom authentication state, we injected this local storage. And like you see, we are making a retriever of this local storage here. So that's an item. After retrieving the item, we deserialize it and now use it. So instead of even injecting this local storage, we can decide to remove this and now put in our class to return the method. So that can just remove one of these. But I don't want to confuse you now. So at least this has just a remove, get, and now set. Just two methods and that's all. Just one line. So let's maintain this. Okay, maybe you can try to modify this to suit the way that you want. But for now, let's focus on the instance of the class that we need to do. Now I'm giving this the name as validates HTTP client. So it can validate it by including the header to it, and can also call by including no header to it. Now let's check. So in the same authentication, we're going to create a class. Right click on create a class, and the name of this class here, make it as validates HTTP client. So if I click on this client, this class, you can see there is just a class that we created with just the name that I gave. You can give it any name that you want. And here we are caching an access token string here. We also inject our local storage and our HTTP client. So as you can see, it is only the string that we are not initializing here. We're initializing all this. So as soon as this page is called or this class is called, the constructor here is going to call first. So as soon as it calls first, it prepares this. And now each of these methods can now use any of them to work. Now we have this get public HTTP client. When you try to log in for the first time, when you click on the app, here the authorization section in the header won't be found. But anytime that you make a request, okay, then the authorization header is going to be added by this. So if you want to call a public request, a public HTTP client, although if this is there, it doesn't mean anything, but it is not good because it is doing nothing over there. So we have to remove it because public requests do not need authorization. So that's why we are removing it and are returning a new instance of this HTTP that we injected here. This is a very simple class, isn't it? Now check this get private. So here, this we are saying that if this string is null, return HTTP client. But you see, we have the meaning it is not. If it is not empty, it has data, then return HTTP client. The question is why? Check this out. We have this access token here. We don't want to be running because let's say when creating a bigger application, we have a lot of API calls in them. Meaning any API that you call, any request that you want to make, unless you come and retrieve the token from the local storage, once you have already retrieved it and now stored the token over here. So we're going to waste time. Okay? And you're talking about also good performance. So in order to do that, after we get it over here, we assign the access token to the token over here. The token is stored here. So this happens the very first time a user makes a request, any request at all. This method is going to run and I'll make the token assigned to this. So the next request, we're going to check if we have this access token, then send it. So don't call this method again. The token is here because here we are calling this method to get a token. So if the token is here, then go. When this token is sent and this token has expired or tempered, you're going to have 401 that's unauthorized. And now when it is 401, we are going to clear this access token inside our app. So before this method gets called again, this access token will be null. And if it be null, then it's going to skip this and I'll come to the next line and I'll execute and I'll get the token again and I'll check if the token is null. If not, then add it to the header and assign the access token to the current token. You see? So don't forget that at the end, we need to set this token to null. If not, you're going to have a refresh token, but we are still going to use the old token. Then return this HTTP client. So this client here comprised of the header and all the stuffs. Okay, now you have two methods, get token from local storage, and now this is a get token. So you can see that the method that we called serializer or deserialize class, that's a static class, we want to deserialize it because you can see it is returning authentication model. So we call this method over here to deserialize this token, you see, and now we want to return it here. So we get it from the local storage, we pass on to this model, it deserialize it, and I return as an object. And here we are setting token to local storage. So this is get from local storage, and now this is set from local storage. So set means we get the token over here, we call this method, we serialize the object into a string, then we set it as an item string async with this the name as authentication. Then we call this get private because as soon as we set the token, it means the token has been renewed. And if it has renewed, it must be added to the header. Okay, so after doing the setup to the token over here, we are now going to call this. So maybe this is what we can do. Even after setting up this token, so meaning that when you set this token, and we have a new token here, but the new token, this is also going to contain the old token, this access token. So you can see we are calling this method again to get the token and now insert it into the local storage. But here, we still have the old token here. So when it gets here, it's going to skip it, right? Because we are checking that if it is not null, then skip it, return this client. So before you call this token, we can set this access token equal to string.empty. Let's set it to null. So when it gets here, the token will be null, then it's going to skip, get the token from local storage again, and now set it to the header of the HTTP client. Okay, so that is exactly what we are doing over here. And also, we can even optimize this. You know, we have this header set already. Maybe a header might be set already. So in order to do that, you have to remove this authorization header and now set the new one, isn't it? So first, in case we have an old one, let's remove that. And we can remove it by this. So maybe we can put this in just a class and I'll call it here and call it here. We are repeating ourselves. But don't worry, this is just a small one, okay? Alright, so remove it over here and now we set this authentication authorization here. We pass on to the bearer and then that is the token. Okay. Now we are done with this. So what we can do here is we are going to now use this class. As soon as you create an instance of this class, it's going to accept, it's going to push in the instance of get public HTTP client, get private, get token, and now set token, because these are all private methods that we are calling here. Now, for this to be work, we have to create a dependency injection, or let's register this. Let's do that in the program.ch file. So click on the program for the web client, and you can see we have to add it over here. So to do that, the very first thing that we need to do here, it is very simple. Let's add a scope to this. So we register this as scope, and that is over here. Let's put it down here. Okay, so we have this class registered in here. So the next thing to do here is to create our service. Now you can see that we want to handle refresh. So we want to put all the calls, API calls, in one class, so that we can create a default, a general class, and all these classes are going to depend on. Okay, so you can see when you check our solution explorer, go to the pages. If I check pages, all right, and I go to weather forecast, you can see we injected an HTTP client in here, and now we are making a call to the API ourselves here. So when you do this, it means anytime there's an error that is unauthorized, you have to create its own implementation to handle that. We don't want to do that. We don't want to repeat ourselves. So what we're going to do here is organize all in the class, and we're going to create an interface and implementation so we can use them or call them in there. So to do that, let's create a folder here and I'll name it as services. So maybe let's add a new folder, and I'll name it as services to the application. That's the Blazor WebAssembly. So within these services, we are going to add an interface. So I'm going to name it as iClient interface. Maybe you can name it any name that you want. Now this iClient interface that you're going to create, it has only one interface method. Okay, so all your interfaces are going to come from here. So you put them over here, but since we're using the default one, we have only this tags as weather forecast in an array, then return this is the name. Let's go for the implementation. So create a class. If you don't know how to create an interface, just right click on services folder, click on add, click on class. But you're not actually going for class, you go for the interface instead, give it a name and add. That is all. Now let's talk about creating the implementation class. So right click on this, click on add, and like you see we have the class, give it a name, and that is all that you need to do in here. So with the implementation, we create it first, and first is it has to inherit from the iClient service, that is the interface created. Now we are injecting the HTTP client instance that we created, that's a validate HTTP client. We inject the constructor, then we initialize it in here. Okay, now the first method here is get weather forecast. That is the implementation in here from our interface. So if you check the interface, we have this get weather forecast. If I peep this to the screen, you see we have only one as what? Get weather forecast. And that is the implementation that we have in here. Okay, so when you click on this get weather forecast, the very first thing is you're going to create an instance of this. You can see here, it needs an authorization header. So which of the methods are you going for? The instance are you going for? We're going for private, because this private get the token from the local storage and now set it to the header. So we get this token over here and I'll set it to the header. Then after that, you're going to make a call. So this token can return, if there's no header, if there's no token in the local storage, it's going to return a new instance of HTTP client with no header. Okay, so with no header as bearer token. So it means when it sends here, this API here, it is protected. It won't work. So it tells the person you are unauthorized. Okay, now let's see. Let's pretend there's a token over there to the header. It has been over here, and you're going to send it. Now, after this response, we need to validate this response and see whether the status code is 401. That is unauthorized. That is the only thing that we need here. Maybe you can check if it is access status code. We start from 200 up to 400 or so. You can check any, but here we are checking if it is 401. That is unauthorized. And if it's unauthorized, that's what you want to handle, because this is just a refresh token that we are creating. So you want a mechanism to check if you are unauthorized, although you are logging and you are unauthorized, so we can access the next method. So we create this method. So check response if unauthorized. This returns just a Boolean expression. So check down here. So check response. And now it is accepting the payload of HTTP response, because when you check here, this is an HTTP code that it is making. So this response here is an HTTP format. We need to pass it as a payload. And now check within that response, we have a section called status code. Check if it is unauthorized, return true. If it is false, maybe if it is not unauthorized, that is 401, return false. So here we are checking that if it is not unauthorized, meaning go on. If it is 200, 201, and etc., go on and I read the content from JSON in an array and I return. So it will skip all this and I'll do the steps here. But in case it is unauthorized, then please wait. We are going to request and set new token, and it has to return true. Okay, so if we set a token and returns true, it means that everything is working. But if it is not true and it is false, then return null. So here you're going to see no list of weather forecast, because maybe there might be an issue on the way. So let's see this request new token and add this method. So we are also here setting this access token to string.empty. We've set already. Another set token. But since here we're going to set the token here, okay, we are going to clear this. So we are doing this twice. We can skip this because here we are set token to local storage. And if I peep the screen, you will see this. After setting up to local storage, we set this access token to null. And I have the same thing repeated here. So let's remove this one. And let me close this. Okay. So after doing this, we get the token from this API. So get token from local storage, right? This is not an API from local storage. Then we get a public HTTP client. So here returns a free header client section, or HTTP client instance. We are making a post async. The API route here is what refresh. Then we create a new post token, which has one property known as refresh token, and that is what the API needs. And now we set the token to this refresh token, because we have this refresh token in a local storage. So we can retrieve it in here and assign the value to this refresh token to make this post request. After doing that, we also wait for the response. We commit the response to login response. Why? If I peep the login response here is going to return token type, access token, and a refresh token. And also the token expiry date, expiration time. That is 3,600 seconds or so. But you want to handle these two guys here, access token and the refresh token. That's what we need. So when you go to the client section, once you have the response here, we check if it is null, return false. Okay, so if the token is null, it means the user couldn't have any token. Then what we're going to do, we're going to return false. And if this is false, then return null, because the token wasn't able to retrieve. So return null. But in case it is able to retrieve, then call this method, set the token that has been retrieved, the new one, to the HTTP, to the local storage. So that's why you call this method, set token to local storage. And now you populate the refresh token over here, the token response, and also the username. The username is going to come from not the API. It is there already. The first time the user logs in, we have the username, we made the call, and now we set to local storage. So the local storage, when we retrieve it here, we have the username also inclusive. That's why I could say this username, it is not coming from the router, it comes from the get token. That is this method from the token. Okay, then we've done this already, check response. So that's all thing that we need to do. And when we are done, so if it works, it returns true. After true, then we're going to make a recursive method. So we're going to call this method again. So when we recall this method, when it gets here and it checks the responses, it won't be unauthorized, because by then a new token has been generated and I insert it into the header. So it's going to skip this, and now it's going to come here and I'll return the response to the user. That is all thing that we need to do. Now, The last thing to do here is to register this HTTP client in the local storage, in the program.cs file. Okay, so let's do that quickly, and we can do blazor.services.add scope, and we add, let me put it down here. So we add our iClient interface, which maps to its class. Maybe you're asking yourself, why are we doing this? This dependency injection. Why? This is dependent on this, isn't it? This contains, if I peep this contains the method names. You could see there's an implementation. You know there's a method known as getWeatherForecast. But what does it do? Peep this, and now this tells you what that method does. So this method does this. This is implementation, and that is the name. So we are creating a sort of connection between them. So we can separate them. You won't put all the implementation in one class. So if I open this, we're going to have our object, our topics, our methods in, and it's going to contain all the implementation that we need. Okay. So once we have this, let's save this. But before we run this, we have to now remove set the weather forecast. We have to remove that call from the weather forecast and inject our HTTP client and make the call from our HTTP client that we created. That's the interface and its implementation class. So we go to the weather forecast. Now I can just remove this, and I'll just paste in the new one. And now it is the same. Just that when you check here, you can see we injected the client service. And now down here, we have to make a call. So you can see we are creating just an array of this weather forecast. And now we are making a call. So forecast equal to await service dot. We can now have a method from this interface, right? So if I peep on this method, you can see we have this a method over here. And if I peep on this implementation, it is returning us to the class. That is the class that we created. All right. So before we test the application, you want to put some breakpoint. Now quickly come to the validate HTTP client, which returns valid instance and also with the header instance of an HTTP client. I made some few changes, and that is this one. We have to check if the local storage token over here, it is equal to this access token. Because it might be that the set token will set the new to the local storage, but this storage will retain its memory. So if they are not equal, then we want to perform this, right? So we have to add this to enable this to work. All right, so this is what you're going to do. Let's go to the service. Now, when you click on this, you're going to make a call to this. And in the call, in case it is not authorized, when after response, we're going to check. When we check and it's not authorized, we're going to request a new method, a new authentication. So to request that, you can see we are going to populate this token. So here we can call this. Then we get a new token. We set it to the local storage. And that's all. The app is now loaded in here. And let's log out. Okay, so we're going to say for the first time, we are going to log or access our application. So when we check our local storage, we might see empty. Empty. Yes, we have it. Now network tab 2, see nothing. Now let's log in. So we pass in our admin. We log in. When we check our application, you can see a login request is being made. We have the response from the server as our token and refresh token. And this token has been set to the local storage. So when you set the application, you check, you can see we have it over here. Now we can make a request all the time. So let's see our breakpoint are hit. So if I click on continue, here it's going to return, it's going to get this pirate method. So let's step into that. You get this pirate method from the token, from local storage. We check if token is not equal to, you see, since it is going to return, you're going to get this token from the local storage. Let's click on OK. And I get a token. Continue on. Okay. So let's wait and see. All right. So you're going to check if the token is not equal to now, or it is not equal to what, or it is not equal to what we have in the database. If they are the same, then keep on. So continue on. and let's wait and see. So we're going to check the response in here. So step into the response. Now checking if the code is unauthorized. There, see. So it is returning false, meaning it is authorized. If so, then continue on. And we're going to have the data in here, right? So this is what we're going to take to do. Now let's go to, let's say that 1 hour has been elapsed and our token is now invalid. So we can just delete some here, and I'll pass in Netcode-Hub. Okay, so let's add it to the token, and we see it has been set over here. Now let's go in there and let's try to access the same API. This time around, we go to the network tab, and in here from the header, let's see. So I'm going to click on this, get weather forecast. Now this breakpoint is hit, so we're going to make a call first. We're going to call this. So let's step into this. Then let's move on. So we are getting a private ATP client. And in here, let's also move ahead. And then we're going to get the token from the local storage. So we are in here, get a token, and now get it. Okay, so we have it, and now we're going to make a call. So we have the token, which contains the Netcode-Hub. And here it has to return 401. So click on next. Then we're going to check the token. So we're going to check over here, step into its method. Now we're going to check. So check if it is unauthorized, return true. So let's see, it must be true. So let's see. All right, so here it did not return true, but it did not. Let's see the reason why. So move ahead. Okay, so return. Let's check first. Now this state here, it is true, right? So this is meaning it worked. Now this is unauthorized. So we're going to skip this and then jump up to this. Click on step in. Now you see it has jumped. Now I'm going to request a new token. And now let me click on continue. That's what you want to do. So you can see request a new token over here. Then move on. Continue on. And now still move on. Continue on. So we need to click on the network tab. Now get a private token. Now I'm going to make the same token request. That's a request again. Let's see. Okay. Now the second, you can see now we have it. Now let's go to the network tab. Now you see there's a call made here. There's a refresh token call. So click on this. So the code was 401 unauthorized. And now there is the code it ends with. It started with Netcode-Hub. Now the refresh token was made. And now when you go to the response, we have a new code over here. There's a token. This token must be set. So when you call it, it was set to the header. And now you can see this, the weather forecast. We have the bearer token set on top here. So we're going to do it once more. I'm going to remove all the breakpoints so it can run smoothly. Okay, now let's check it out. So let's temper this one. But for now, if I click on this again, home, and if I click on weather forecast, you see I have it. So the number of times that I click, I'm going to have it. So far as I'm valid. Now let's make this as invalid. So I'm going to add channel to this. We have the channel set over here. Now go in there, go out, so home, and now go to the network tab. Let's clear everything here. Let's make a call. So you can see 401, a new request was made as tap is fetched, and you can see it is a 200, and now it has been assigned to the header, and now we have the 200, and that is the response that you see here. So if you click on this, you go to the response, you have the list as you can see. All right, so that is it, the way to implement this refresh token. There are so many ways, but at least this is also simple as well to me. Check it out. I'll put a link under the description, so check from the GitHub. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you are interested in this and want to buy me coffee too, I'll be interested to take it as well. Hot one. I'll put the link in the description. And if you're interested as a beginner, you want to know more about Blazor technology and .NET API and etc., write to me. Check the description too. We have the link over there. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this. I believe this is helpful. You've learned something new. And I'm going to catch you up in the next video.